Well, a lot of the scientists like to be very cautious and to be very careful and to emphasize uncertainty, but then they find that that uncertainty is picked on and taken as a proof of denial. And, they find themselves in all kinds of situations they've never found themselves in this way before. And it is, Sanjay, talking of water, here's a glass, water for you, please. And I'm interested to see you talking about people feeling alone, and that goes back partly to your sense of community. But also, don't people sometimes need to feel the anguish, and that sometimes you have to feel that alone a little, because so much of our modern Western culture has actually been based on avoidance of uncomfortable feelings. You escape constantly. You have retail therapy. You put on, one gadget after another to blot out any kind of pain or discomfort you may start to sense from your environment or the way you live. So don't we need, isn't part of this feeling of consequences that we're facing now and the anguish that comes with that, don't we need, without toppling over the edge, don't we need also to have a little bit of that real awareness and take it in, what we're talking about, what we're really facing here, before we go to hope or some way of alleviating it?
Yes, we do, but we also need to monitor the people who are alone with their feelings of despair if they've reached that point. And I would, at this time, I'd be very, if you have sensitive artist friends who are throwing themselves into the climate movement, if you have, different folks who are just known for being very sensitive, a lot of this just doesn't make sense to them. Talking to them about realpolitik or something like that's not going to be very helpful. So I think we have to help people be alone with it in those areas where it's healthy for them to do so. But we have to, I think, keep a closer eye on our friends now. Keep a closer eye on how they're absorbing information. Make sure they're getting some breaks from their work and aren't using the work just to keep, plowing forward. What I was going to say about climate scientists is that when you get a climate scientist and you go out for a beer, they'll speak with certainty in a way that they can't in public. And so in private, I think climate scientists are saying things that that may be indicative that they, just like any other human being, are suffering from some of the stresses of knowing the world will be a different place, and certainly a place that many people, if they were to look at it, might honestly admit they didn't want to live in.
And do you think that this is why some people, I don't mean the mischief-making climate deniers, but I mean, honorable, decent people who just don't want to believe this, they don't want to know. I mean, I can really sympathize with that often, even though I'm absolutely passionate about this. I can, because, so much of their worldview has to suddenly change, and it just seems unbearable. And
yeah, I think it's a very sensitive remark, because not everyone can take the time to not only understand the issue, but also then to deal with the emotional implications. And for those who need to do that, who need to go through that process, and not everyone will, I think there needs to be an interpersonal bridge. I don't think it can all be done through mass media. I don't think you can have campaigners have a message that's going to get through when there's a lot of unconscious sadness happening in our society because other prospects for our children, most parents aren't thinking about prospects for their children in terms of climate change. Most of them are thinking of them in terms of economic change, the change in the economic climate, thinking their children would have better lives, and then concluding they won't. And if you add climate change to that, that could create a certain amount of disturbance. So how we deal with this, deal with the reality of it, and also how we give hope, and provide hope, not in the sense of saying we're going to make it all better, but in the sense that you could say to people that you can become stronger through this phase, you can become more loving, you can become more compassionate. You may need help to do that, you may need some training, you may need to understand how you can develop more inner strength through this phase. That's a positive thing we can hope for, is that we can develop more inner strength at a time when people are becoming more afraid, and then we can actually help them.
So this is a breakdown that becomes a breakthrough for them. So thank you, Sanjay, very much for very insightful remarks, and I hope this more subtle approach will really help all of us deal with what is going to be a really difficult time. Thank you.
And if any climate organizations need some assistance in thinking through some challenges, I'd be happy to help.